In chapter one, we're going to be discussing the role of management accountants, the particular management questions that these accountants help management answer, and what types of data these accountants are going to need to make the best decision to answer that question. What type of questions would a management accountant have to answer? Well, there's a lot. For example, what product are we going to sell? What service are we going to provide? There's a whole mix. Apple makes tons and tons of products. Some of them are more profitable than others. How do you determine what your optimal product mix is? You're going to need information for that to analyze it and pass it off to management to help them make the best decision possible. Which customers to target? Some products are very tailored, custom made for a specific demographic. Well, you're going to need information about the profitability of each product, as well as information about the general public that you plan to sell to, who is most likely to buy your product and at what price. Which employees to hire? How effective do you think your employees are going to be at producing output, at making products or providing services, and what are they going to cost you? Information that you would need. How to best produce your products or provide your services. Operations management techniques will go through and tell you what is the optimal way to cost efficiently and time efficiently produce products or provide services. And lastly, how now that the product is done or the service is ready to go, how much are we going to charge for it? How much are people willing to pay? How long do we think it's going to take? What resources in terms of materials and employee labor time are we going to have to give up to do that to make the good? And that helps us set our price that's going to help us be as profitable as we want to be. So companies are always trying to create market share. They want people going to them for products or services as opposed to their competitors. Well, why would a person want to go to one company instead of the other? And how does that company use that information to gain market share? Well, one way to do that is to generate a cost advantage. Find some way that you can to make your goods or your services cheaper than anybody else can. And in that way, you can lower your asking price for your goods or services and effectively undercut your competition. People always like a deal. People are going to go to you to get their goods or get their services instead of your competitors. So while your profit margin on a per product level might not be as high as you would think it was, the increase in demand from selling at a lower price is going to result in more overall profits for your company. So you can use information to figure out what is the most efficient way that we can make this good or provide the service and have it lower our total cost and therefore let us sell it at a cheaper price. And if that doesn't work, how do you make your product into something that somebody else would want above your competitors? Well, you make it different. So you can go through, you can survey the general public and figure out what they want out of a cell phone or a guitar or a laptop or whatever you're selling. What are the features that they want? And find a way to make your product meet the needs of the people that would be willing to buy it for it. Have a different product will increase your market share, increase your overall profitability. That's just a few questions. I mean, it's just a few things that you want to look to answer. The amount of questions that a management accountant has to answer over a period of time is a very, very long list. And throughout this course, you're going to answer a whole bunch of questions like, what data do we need to help us make the best decision to make a recommendation to management? There's all sorts of stuff that your company's going to have to work with. Maybe you have some access databases. Maybe you have a whole bunch of Excel spreadsheets. Maybe somebody built tools in Python that collects all of your data, but you're going to have a wealth of information. So you need to go through and figure out if I need a data point, if I need to find one piece of information to answer this question, where do I go and look for it? And then when you have that to work with, all sorts of questions that you can answer. CVP analysis. What amount of products or services are we going to have to provide to have to hit our target profit point? That's chapter three. If we are making products that are pretty unique, custom order, if you will, how are we going to determine what the cost of these jobs are so we know what to sell them for? If we have a cost that's shared between a bunch of different jobs or products or segments, how do we fairly distribute that shared cost to the different cost objects, if as they call them, to figure out how profitable they are? After we sell stuff, some products are going to require more support for our customers down the line than others. Like if you're selling anything tech-based, you're selling, a new computer program. people are probably going to have questions, and you're going to have an IT support department to help them out. Well, I think that information should be taken into consideration when you're figuring out if we launch this new program, how much is it going to increase our products because it's an additional cost. So how do you shell out and divvy out, if you will, the support activity costs that you're going to incur after the product is sold? How do costs get allocated if you are mass producing goods that all look like one another? That's process-based costing. So how do you set that up to figure out what your cost of each product is going to be? If you have an organization where there's one body, one central organization that makes all of the decisions, how do you assign the costs of, employing that body, putting them in an office, et cetera, amongst the different things that your company does? Versus what if you're decentralized? Instead of having just one central management location, you have regional departments that are the decision makers. Or even further down the line, maybe you have a way to split your company into different segments. Like maybe you are a computer company and you have hardware and software. How do you shell the cost between those two different segments? How do you use information to go through and figure out what is the best and most accurate way to budget in the future? There's a bunch of statistical techniques that you are going to learn throughout the semester that are going to help you make accurate predictions. What information you're going to need to make those predictions, where do you get it from? And then, as always, when the actual numbers come in, they're probably not going to be the same as what you predicted. So, how do you analyze your actual results versus your budgeted expectations to figure out where the company was strong or where the company was weak during the period? Going even further down the list, how are we going to measure our goals? Every company has a certain list of things that they want to do during the upcoming period. Increase sales volume of product A, start selling products in a different region of the world that we haven't sold before, make our employees happier through, extra compensation programs, etc. Like a big list of things that you want to do that are your goals and usually tied to key performance indicators or KPIs as they call them. So how do you take the information on all that and determine are we meeting our actual goals? What information should we consider when we're making any decision? There is so much information that a company could have on a whole bunch of different things, and not all of it is relevant to your decision. So how do you parse through that wealth of information to figure out exactly what you need to determine accurately how making a decision should affect your profitability? And then after you've got that decision in place, you need to finance it. So how do you come up and finance your capital projects, as they call them, the long-term, very expensive projects that your company's going to have, building new production facilities, etc. You have options. You can take out a loan, you can issue bonds, you can issue stocks. Which one of those is going to lead to the most amount of profitability that you have? So these are all questions that management can have frequently. And as a management accountant, it's your job to make the best recommendation you possibly can to them by analyzing the situation, figuring out the information that's going to help you answer the question, and then using that information to come to a conclusion. And in today's day and age, that's not the easiest thing. But back in the day, back in the mid 1900s or whatever, there's very little data out there to work with. A lot of what management accountants did was on informed estimation. But nowadays, there's information everywhere. When we hop on YouTube, there's all sorts of information that goes in about what we watch, when we watch, and it helps build the algorithm. Companies have that same stuff to work with as well. You can go out there and find information about the demographics of your customer base. You can find a ton of information about how they expect the economy to change. You can find information about what the going price is for any one material you would use. There is an absolute wealth of information. So management accountant's position, job function has changed a little bit from making estimates, wild guesses, if you will, as best as you possibly can, to using that wealth of actual information that you have to accurately answer the question. And management accountants now are not so much predictors as they are analysts. They go through the information that they have, use their analytical mindset to evaluate the information and pass that along to management to make the best decision. And that's what we're going to be in this class, the middleman, if you will, right in the middle there, the management accountant. We're going to assume that we have a data scientist somewhere. He's a developer. He's probably got programs. Again, all this stuff I was talking about earlier, Python or Access or Excel or R or whatever program he's using to compile information. And it's going to be raw information, but information that's set up in a way that it's easy to break down, and to retrieve certain points out of. And as the management accountant, we're going to use all of that data that was compiled by the scientist and interpret it and analyze it and use it to answer the question that we're going to pass off to the decision maker, which is management.